Hey guys, so last week we all played the Monopoly game in class, and I think both of the groups, the players in the groups, had different approaches in terms of like how to play the game and what they thought would help them. But I think in both of them we see the same trend emerging, and that is how hard it truly is to gain social mobility and to move upward on the social ladder. In our game, a lot of people tried to do that by joining together and forming like alliances with each other, both interclass and intraclass. We had one family, well, they became a family. Two people got married, Jeremy and Catherine, and then they adopted Kira. And I think they were really just trying to aggregate their money in the hopes that they would be a higher class. I think they wanted us to treat them as one unit. They wanted one game piece. They just wanted more money. Um, but I didn't allow that. I was upper class. And then we had the other couple who got married, Lee Hong and Sienna. And that was interesting. That was interclass because one of them was working class, so they moved up from working to middle. And I think for both of them, they were really hoping that that would help them gain social mobility and move up the social ladder. But in both cases, it didn't really work. Um, I was upper class. I was definitely in control, and I asserted my power frequently. I made people give me their money. Whenever they would buy a property, the money would go straight to me. And I also sent Li Hong to jail for complaining. And then his terms for bail were kind of strange. I made Sienna bail him out um, by paying $500. Uh, so that was kind of strange. My moves weren't really strategic, what I did. Um, for the most part, I just decided to use my power to the fullest and just have fun with it. I went a little power crazy. But I think a lot of that was that there was never a point in the game where I felt threatened as an upper class person. I was just so far ahead of everyone. And every time we passed go, I would get so much more money than everyone, and everyone was giving me their money. So I never felt threatened. Um, I didn't even consider the thought that I could move down a class. And since I was already the highest class, I really had no concerns in the game. I was just having fun and letting other people do the work and strategize. Um, and even though this game was a little exaggerated, definitely, I think a lot of the points in it hold very true. Um, it represents a lot of real issues we face in society, um, in terms of classes and what class you're born into and how that affects the opportunities that you get later in life. So I definitely think in that way it models a lot of um, real world patterns. Uh, I thought that the most interesting thing to consider were the trends in upward and downward social mobility. We didn't really see any downward social mobility, and I think a lot of that is because once you're in a higher class, you're already given innately so many advantages that it's so much harder for you to move down. Like the middle class, you already had more money starting out. You already had more money each time you passed go. Everything was just easier for you. So it was much harder for you to move down a class. Whereas if you were a lower class citizen, it was very, very hard for you to move up. Even after these alliances that we had and all these different strategies people were doing, and there were people that were actually buying properties and like really thinking about the game. I wasn't really doing anything as an upper class citizen because I didn't really have to. Um, but you saw the lower classes really trying their hardest to move up the social ladder, and they just couldn't because they were just given so many handicaps initially. Um, Not only like in their inheritance, but in how much it cost them to get out of jail, and the fact that I could kind of change the rules of the game at my own discretion. Um, and that definitely models reality, I think, because people in the lower classes are not born, I don't believe, with the same opportunities as people in the higher classes, whether that's education, the money, the family that you're born into, and the income that they have. I just don't think you can say that everyone starts off, obviously, with the same thing. And that really influences what you do in life and if you're able to have upward social mobility. So, like I talked a little bit about before, we had a lot of class alliances. We didn't really see much class conflict. I think people just kind of did their own thing, and they felt like whether they were working class or middle class, I don't think, except for me, I don't think there was really like an air of I'm better than you. I kind of felt like I could do anything. But the other classes, I think, all sort of tried to work together and raise themselves above their current social standing, um, which was interesting. I guess that there wasn't really competition. They weren't competing to like buy the best property. They weren't competing with each other. They were all just kind of joining together, and they're like, okay, what can we do to defeat this upper class person, to raise ourselves to her level? And that's an interesting thought in terms of like the power that we've been talking about in class and the resistance to the power. I definitely held the power, and people were definitely resisting me. Um, Li Hong was complaining, like I said, but people were also resisting in the sense that they really wanted to shift me out of control and bring themselves into power.